Welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very interesting episode of Marvel's Avengers 101, which is the last episode revolving around that of the prequel comics. So if you've been keeping up with the Avengers project news with what little we have, you would be aware that we have recently received the last installment of the Marvel's Avengers prequel comic series pertaining to that of Black Widow. And since this series is finally over and done with, I do have to say that while I do appreciate getting a deeper dive into these interpretations of the characters that we are going to see within the games universe of the Avengers world, I definitely think that some of the production value could have been a bit better relating to some of the specific comics in question within this series, like that of Captain America, as well as Thor, Iron Man, Bruce Banner, and now with Black Widow. While I still believe that the Bruce Banner / Hulk issue is the best of the series thus far, and that the Captain America issue is the worst that the series has to offer, you can certainly identify that some of the overall attributes that these comics do inquire do feel a sense of being rushed during the production, given that these comics were scheduled with the original release date in mind of May 15th. But now, since the game has been delayed until September 4th, I do think that they could have possibly retracted some of these comics and rework them a bit better just to give them a little bit more polish. But as for one of the main plus sides that this series does feature is in fact getting a deeper dive into the overall world of this universe of the Avengers characters and where we could possibly see the story go once the full game does release. And especially for other fans out there like myself who are major comic book buffs, it's always great to see an original spin on the characters that we do know fully from the comics in a brand new and unique way. And even though some of the issues could have been handled a bit better, that is exactly what we ended up getting with the Marvel's Avengers prequel comic series. So if you are someone who is extremely excited for the game or is just curious as to where the story could go, I would highly recommend to try and check these comics out for yourself and give them a try. But of course, the main comic in question for today's video is relating to none other than the Russian super spy herself of Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. And unlike the previous issue of the series with that of Captain America, which solely focused on the background history of that character within this game's universe, the individual comic tying into Black Widow's story also dives into the background history of Natasha Romanoff, but also goes further into expanding the overall world that this game will feature by the time it does release. For starters, even though we did see this specific character within the very end of the Iron Man issue, he does appear the most frequently within the Black Widow issue, and of course I am in fact talking about the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. with that of Nick Fury. Not to mention that this issue does do a pretty good job of diving into the previous escapades of one of the main villains of the game with that of Tony Masters, aka Taskmaster. And primarily regarding the main setting of the comic itself, we do get to see Black Widow in her early days training under S.H.I.E.L.D.'s management. Not only do we get to see Nick Fury act like a personal mentor towards Natasha when she is initially joining S.H.I.E.L.D., where the other agents don't fully trust her yet, but we also get to see her form a connection with that of Tony Masters before he actually goes and turns into Taskmaster. And even though the comic does kind of gloss over the main fact as to why exactly Tony Masters turns against S.H.I.E.L.D., it does give us enough of a personal connection between him and Natasha, showing why they do have such a personal history with each other by the time A-Day actually begins. And these particular factors were thoroughly showcased within the comic by including minor flashbacks of Natasha's time training under the Red Room. Not only does this provide great insight to Natasha as a character, but it also fully realizes exactly how she fully became the Black Widow persona that she does fully envelop today. And while this issue does do a pretty good job of setting up a straightforward plot to the overall events of A-Day for the beginning of the game's story, it does give us quite a plethora of references to other potential villains we could see appear within the game down the line. These mainly include the villain factions of Hydra, which we do fully see within the comic itself, as well as the Secret Empire and the Sons of the Serpent. So obviously, given that we are going to be fighting a plethora of enemies within this game as several different heroes, it would only make sense that they would include a much popular villain faction to face off against, like that of Hydra. But to be completely honest, I was not expecting Marvel to actually include the Secret Empire or the Sons of the Serpent within this game as possible villain factions, considering that they are pretty deep cuts within Marvel lore. But to fully provide context from the comic itself, we do see a panel where Nick Fury is communicating with other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents saying that there are big-time escapees breaking out from their S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. And to quote Nick Fury directly, he states that lethal force is authorized. We're holding members of Hydra Hydra, the Secret Empire, the Sons of the Serpent. They're highly trained, have nothing to lose, and are probably armed by now, so be ready for anything. And of course, while this predicament is in fact solved by Black Widow taking out a plethora of the escapees herself, and this event did take place years ago before the events of A-Day, there is still a possibility that one, if not all of these villain factions could appear in one way or another within the Avengers project, either at launch or within the content for years to come down the line. And for those of you who may be a bit unaware as to who exactly these villain groups are, not to worry, because there is a plethora of information on the Marvel database website that fully explains as to what they do fully entail. So initially, for the case of the Secret Empire, they are in fact a subversive organization concerned with conquering the USA through superstitious means such as forming underground armies and engaging in deeply layered conspiracies. Traditionally, the Secret Empire has been organized by code numbers given to each member, which indicates their rank within the organization. The 9 highest ranking members originally comprised the Council of 9 to provide direction for the rest of the organization, while the person who held the rank of number 1 served as the supreme leader. The original Secret Empire was funded directly by Hydra, and its underground branch called THEM, or Them, made the Empire a branch of Hydra alongside its own scientific division of AIM. However, later iterations of the Empire were completely self-sufficient. And considering how we are dealing with the Secret Empire as possible villains to be featured within the game, definitely expect major characters like that of Madam Hydra or Red Skull to appear or be referenced one way or another. As for the other major villain organization, which is referenced within this comic of the Sons of the Serpent, which I do believe is different from the Serpent Society, is that they were a racist group attempting to divide America, performing hate crimes against foreigners around the country. And mainly in the old days of the comics themselves, the Serpents retaliated by kidnapping Captain America and threatening to kill him unless the Avengers would publicly take the Serpent's side. But in the end, the Avengers and S.H.I.E.L.D. freed Captain America and unmasked General Shen as the Serpent's leader. So now that we have more lore to dive into within the overall world of Marvel's Avengers and a clear setup to the events heading into A-Day, I can definitely say that this particular comic did do a pretty good job of setting events up thoroughly in a very concise manner. However, one small nitpick that I do have for this comic is that once again, there weren't any other Avengers in this Avengers prequel comic other than just directly focusing on Black Widow herself. But for a plus that this comic does feature, I can definitely say that it does have the most visually appealing art style out of all the other comics, as well as diving into Natasha's character being an extremely interesting one at that. And seeing how well-rounded her character was within this comic, I fully expect her character to be just like this, if not more detailed, once the game officially releases on September 4th. And if I did have to provide a rating for this comic, I would actually provide it a solid 8 out of 10. But with all that said, everyone, that's the video I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What did you think of this specific issue relating to Black Widow's origins within the Avengers Project universe, and out of all the other comics within the series, which one was your absolute favorite? Again, even though I did enjoy this particular issue, I would still prefer the Hulk issue over everything else, considering how it's such an intriguing take on Bruce Banner's character. So now that the entirety of the Marvel's Avengers prequel comic series is over and done with, the main question that I bet is on everyone's minds is what happens next? Well, sadly, we still haven't received the full-on co-op showcase that Square Enix did promise to us within early 2020, and considering how March is almost over, I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon. But again, I do believe that we will actually get more of a deep dive of the game's status after the next major Square Enix game title of Final Fantasy VII Remake officially releases worldwide on April 10th. That way, once Square's next major gaming project is out for the public to get their hands on, they can then move on to their next big project with that of the Avengers. And for those of you out there who do actually enjoy watching these videos and reading about the Avengers Project universe in general, we are going to receive a prequel novel of the game, which is scheduled to release on August 4th. So even though the next reading installment for this game is a ways off, definitely stay tuned to this channel and on social media for my thoughts on it once it does fully release. But until the next official update for Marvel's Avengers, everyone, thank you all so much for watching, stay merry Marvelites, and peace out.
Guess you saw that coming, huh?
You think you've won?
What the hell are you talking about?
Look around, Romanoff. The world will remember this day. The day their heroes failed them.